My name is Olivia Smith, and I'm 35 years old. What would you do if you discovered your own parents had been systematically discriminating against your children for years, all while living off your money? When I walked into my parents' house that evening, I overheard my mother say something that shattered my world. Sarah's kids eat first, and Olivia's get the scraps. My 7-year-old daughter and 5-year-old son were hunched in the corner, staring at empty plates while their cousins feasted. 8 years of paying my family's bills, and this was how they treated my babies. Before we dive into what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. Now let me tell you how I discovered the shocking truth about my own family. It was a Thursday evening in October when everything changed. I'd just returned from a 2-week business trip to Singapore, another exhausting stretch of meetings and negotiations that kept me away from my children. As chief financial officer of a tech company, these trips were part of my life, but I always rushed home to Emma and Liam as soon as I could. Marcus, my husband, had suggested we stop by my parents' house for dinner before heading home. The kids missed their grandparents, he said, though something in his voice seemed off. I should have paid more attention to that hesitation. We arrived at 6:30, right in the middle of dinner time. The familiar smell of my mother's pot roast filled the air as we walked through the front door. But something felt wrong immediately. The usual chaos of family dinner was there. Laughter, clattering dishes, my sister Sarah's loud voice dominating the conversation, but my children weren't part of it. I found them in the corner of the dining room, sitting at a small folding table I'd never seen before. Their plates were empty, completely empty. Meanwhile, at the main dining table, Sarah's 3 kids were enjoying heaping portions of food, with my parents and Sarah fussing over them, making sure they had enough of everything. "Emma, sweetheart, what's going on?" I whispered, kneeling beside my daughter. Her small voice broke through the noise. "Mommy, we're waiting for our turn." "Your turn?" "After cousins finish eating, we get food," Liam added quietly, his 5-year-old eyes focused on his empty plate. My heart stopped. I looked at Marcus, who avoided my gaze. He knew. He'd known. And he'd brought me here to see it for myself. The question was, how long had this been happening? "How long has this been going on?" I asked Emma, trying to keep my voice steady. "Since summer," she whispered. "When you go on trips." My mind raced. Summer. 3 months. 3 months of my children being treated like second-class citizens in their grandparents' home. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking with rage I was fighting to control. "Mom," I called out, my voice cutting through the dinner conversation. "Why are my children sitting separately?" My mother, Linda, barely glanced over. "Oh, Olivia, you're back. The children need to learn patience. We have a system now." "A system?" Sarah turned in her chair, her perfectly styled blonde hair catching the light. "It's simple organization, Liv. My kids have activities after dinner. They need to eat first." "And my kids?" "They eat after," my father Robert said matter-of-factly, not even looking up from his plate. "There's always plenty left." Leftovers. They were feeding my children leftovers while their cousins ate fresh food. I watched as Sarah's oldest, Tyler, pushed away a barely touched plate of mashed potatoes, food that would probably end up being my children's dinner. "This isn't the first time, is it?" I said, the pieces falling into place. Emma's lost weight over the summer. Liam's reluctance to visit Grandma and Grandpa. Marcus's strange behavior these past weeks. "Every time you travel," Marcus finally spoke up, his voice tight with controlled anger. "I tried to tell you, but you said I was imagining things. So tonight I wanted you to see it yourself." The room had gone quiet. Sarah smirked. My parents looked annoyed at the interruption, and my babies sat there, still waiting for permission to eat. Something inside me shifted. A fundamental breaking point I didn't know existed until that moment. "Emma, Liam, Come here, I said, holding out my hands. They scrambled up immediately, relief visible on their faces. Olivia, don't be dramatic, my mother sighed. They're fine. Children nowadays are too soft anyway. Too soft? I repeated, incredulous. They're 7 and 5 years old, Mom. Sarah laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, please, Liv. Stop babying them. Some families are just different. They need to understand hierarchy. Hierarchy? The word tasted bitter. What hierarchy, Sarah? You know what I mean, she said, waving her manicured hand dismissively. My kids are in advanced programs, heading to elite schools. Yours are, well, they're yours. The implication hung heavy in the air. I looked at my children, Emma with her beautiful brown eyes, Liam with his gorgeous curly hair, and understood exactly what Sarah meant, what they all meant. Because they're mixed? I said it out loud, making everyone freeze. No one said that, my father interjected quickly, but his tone said everything. You didn't have to, I replied, pulling my children closer. Making them wait for scraps says it clearly enough. Get used to it, Sarah snapped, her mask finally slipping. Some children are just born to take what's left, that's reality. My father nodded approvingly. They need to know their place, Olivia. Better they learn it from family than strangers. Their place. My successful, brilliant husband's children. My beautiful, smart babies. They needed to know their place. In the corner, waiting for scraps, because their skin was a shade darker than their cousins. I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I simply looked at each of them, these people I'd called family, and made a decision that would change everything. Then Sarah said something that changed everything, something that revealed exactly how deep this poison ran. You want to know the truth, Olivia? Sarah stood up, her voice rising. Your kids were born to take what's left. Mixed children don't belong at the main table. They never have and they never will. The words hit like physical blows. Emma pressed her face into my side, and I felt her small body trembling. Liam grabbed my hand so tight it hurt. Sarah! My mother's rebuke wasn't for the sentiment. It was for saying it out loud. What? We're all thinking it, Sarah continued, emboldened. Look at them. They don't look like us. They don't act like us. They're different, and difference has consequences. Their father is a software engineer at Microsoft, I said quietly. He makes more than your husband. Money doesn't change blood, my father said firmly. Pure bloodlines matter, Olivia. You chose to dilute ours. Dilute. Like my children were some kind of contamination. And you all agree with this? I looked around the room. My mother avoided my eyes. My father stood straighter, defiant. Sarah smirked. Even Sarah's children watched with curious interest, already learning these lessons of superiority. It's not about agreeing, my mother finally said. It's about what's practical. Sarah's children have opportunities. They need proper nutrition for their activities. And mine don't? Yours need to learn humility, she replied. The world won't be kind to them. We're doing them a favor. A favor. Starving my children's bodies and souls was a favor. Making them watch their cousins eat while they sat with empty plates was character building. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. I looked down at my children, then at my husband, who stood by the door, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. His eyes met mine, and in them, I saw the same decision I'd already made. As I stood there holding my children, a different realization crashed over me. The monthly bank transfers, the automatic payments, the financial safety net I'd been providing for 8 years. Interesting perspective from people living in the house I pay for, I said softly. The room went still. What's that supposed to mean? Sarah asked, but her voice wavered. $500 a month for mom and dad's rent. Has been for 8 years since dad's business failed. I kept my voice conversational, like I was discussing the weather. The health insurance for the whole family, that's me too. Sarah, remember when you needed that $50,000 loan last year? Still waiting for a single payment back. That's different, Sarah started. Tyler's private school tuition, I pay that. Madison's dance classes, Jacob's hockey league, all me. Mom's diabetes medication that insurance doesn't fully cover, I handle that too. My mother's face had gone pale. Olivia, that's family helping family. Is it? I pulled out my phone, opening my banking app. Let me calculate. 8 years, averaging $7,000 a month in family support. That's $672,000, not counting the one-time emergency payments. You offered, my father sputtered. I did, because I thought we were family, because I thought love meant something here. I looked at my children, still pressed against me. But apparently, my money is good enough for this family, just not my children. Sarah's face had turned red. You can't just... Can't what? Stop paying for people who make my babies eat scraps? I locked my phone. Watch me. The panic that flashed across their faces was almost comical. Almost. But I wasn't done connecting the dots. There was more to this story, and suddenly 8 years of small moments made sense. I didn't say another word. There was nothing left to say that would matter. I bent down, scooped Liam into my arms, and took Emma's hand. Olivia, sit down, my father commanded. We're not done discussing this. I kept walking. You're being ridiculous, Sarah called out. So sensitive. It's just dinner arrangements. I didn't respond. Marcus opened the door for us, his hand briefly touching my back in silent support. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back, my mother threatened. Still, I said nothing. Emma looked up at me, tears in her eyes, and I gave her a small smile. We kept walking. Think about what you're doing, Sarah rushed after us. You're going to destroy this family over your pride? I settled Liam into his car seat, helped Emma with her buckle. Marcus started the engine. Through it all, I maintained my silence, even as my phone began buzzing with texts. As we pulled away, I saw them through the dining room window, Sarah gesticulating wildly, my parents looking stunned, the children still at the table, watching the drama unfold. But there was one face that stood out. My brother David, who'd been quiet in the corner the entire time. He was holding his phone, and the look he gave me through the window was one of understanding. He'd seen everything, recorded everything. Mommy? Emma's small voice broke through my thoughts. Are we never going back? Not like before, baby, I said softly. Never like before. My phone kept buzzing. 17 missed calls in 5 minutes. But I didn't need to answer them. My silence said everything that needed to be said. What they didn't know yet was that my silence would cost them everything they'd taken for granted. I didn't need to scream or fight. I just needed to stop enabling them. If you're finding value in Olivia's story and believe no child should be treated as second class in their own family, please take a moment to hit that like button. Your support helps these important stories reach others who might need to hear them. And if you've ever had to set firm boundaries with family, I'd love to hear your experience in the comments below. Now let's see what happened when Olivia finally took action. The drive home was silent except for Liam's quiet sniffles. Marcus reached over and squeezed my hand at a red light, no words needed between us. We'd been together 12 years, and he knew me well enough to understand that my quietness wasn't weakness. It was resolve crystallizing into action. 20 minutes. That's how long it took. 20 minutes, before my phone exploded with the kind of panic I'd never heard from my family before. The first voicemail was from my mother, her voice shaking. Olivia, the bank just called. The automatic transfer for the mortgage didn't go through. There must be some mistake. Call me back immediately. The second was from Sarah, less composed. What did you do? Mom's freaking out about the mortgage. The third from my father, angry but with an edge of fear. Olivia Marie Smith, you answer this phone right now. This is not how family behaves. Marcus glanced at me. You already canceled everything? The moment I saw my babies at that folding table, I confirmed. Mobile banking is remarkably efficient. The health insurance too? Everything. Rent, insurance, credit cards I was backing, the investment account for Sarah's kids' college. Everything. He whistled low. They're going to lose the house. They have 30 days to figure it out. That's more notice than they gave our children about their new place in the family. Emma had been listening. Mommy, are Grandma and Grandpa going to be okay? I turned to look at my daughter, my beautiful, kind daughter, who was worried about the people who'd just humiliated her. They'll have to make some changes, sweetheart, but that's not your responsibility. My phone rang again. This time, it was David, my younger brother, the lawyer, the quiet one who'd watched everything unfold. I answered. Don't hang up, David said immediately. I'm not calling to convince you to change your mind. Then why are you calling? To tell you I recorded everything, the whole dinner conversation. I've been documenting this for months, waiting for you to see it yourself. I pulled into our driveway, my hand frozen on the gear shift. You knew? I've watched it happen every time you traveled. I tried to hint, but... He paused. You needed to see it yourself. And Olivia, I'm proud of you for walking away. Before I could respond, call waiting beeped. Sarah. I have to go, David, but thank you. I switched calls, putting it on speaker so Marcus could hear. How dare you? Sarah screamed. Mom's having a panic attack. The bank says they'll foreclose if we miss next month's payment. That's unfortunate, I said calmly, helping Liam out of his car seat. Unfortunate? You're destroying our lives over one dinner? One dinner? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Sarah, you just told my children they were born to take leftovers, that they don't deserve to eat at the same table as your kids because they're mixed race. I didn't mean... You meant every word. Dad called my children a dilution of the bloodline. Mom said they needed to learn their place. You all meant it. But the house, my kids' school, Mom's medication. Interesting how quickly it becomes about money, Marcus observed quietly. There's a solution, I said. You could get a job. Mom and Dad could downsize. You could pay for your own children's education. You vindictive... I hung up. Within seconds, the phone rang again. This time, it was a text from my mother. The insurance company says our coverage ends at midnight. Your father's heart medication costs $400 a month without it. Please. An hour later, after I'd fed my children a proper dinner and tucked them into bed with extra hugs and reassurances, Sarah called again. This time, her voice was different. Sweet, conciliatory, fake. Liv, sweetie, we need to talk about this misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Sarah. You took things out of context. You know how Mom gets when she's tired. And I was just... It was a joke that came out wrong. A joke. I was sitting in my home office, Marcus beside me, both of us listening to her performance. You know I love Emma and Liam. They're my niece and nephew. I would never actually mean those things. The recording says otherwise. Silence. What recording? The one David made. The one where you clearly state that mixed children don't belong at the main table, that they were born to take what's left. David wouldn't. He did. He's been documenting this for months. Her sweet tone evaporated. You can't use that against us. We're family. Family. I tested the word. Family doesn't make children watch others eat while they sit with empty plates. Family doesn't take $672,000 in support while treating the giver's children as inferior. Think about what you're doing, she switched tactics again. This affects everyone. My kids will lose their school. They'll lose their opportunities. Is that what you want? Your kids aren't my responsibility, Sarah. They never were. I was just too blinded by family loyalty to see it. Family loyalty? You're destroying us. No, I'm setting boundaries. You destroyed us when you decided my children's race made them less worthy of basic dignity. If you do this, we'll never speak to you again. Promise? Marcus muttered. But Sarah didn't know about David yet. She didn't know that her biggest problem wasn't me. It was the lawyer in the family who'd chosen justice over blood. David arrived at our house at 9 p.m., carrying a leather briefcase and wearing his lawyer face, the one that had won him partnership at 32. Before you ask, I'm not here to mediate, he said, settling into our living room. I'm here to protect you and the kids. David, you don't have to pick sides. I'm not picking sides, Olivia. I'm picking justice. He pulled out his phone. I have 3 months of recordings, every dinner where your kids were segregated, every comment about their place, every time Mom called them different with that tone. Marcus leaned forward. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Because Olivia wouldn't have believed it without seeing it herself. She loves too hard, trusts too much. David looked at me. You would have made excuses for them, found ways to rationalize it. He was right, I would have. There's more, David continued. The trust fund Grandma set up before she died? The one for all the grandchildren's education? My stomach dropped. What about it? Mom and Dad have been pulling from it, only from Emma and Liam's portions. Sarah's kids' shares are untouched, but yours have been depleted by almost 60%. That's illegal, Marcus said sharply. Highly. And as the trust's legal representative, I've already filed the necessary paperwork to freeze all accounts and investigate the misappropriation. David, they're your parents too. Who taught me about justice and fairness, ironically enough. He pulled out a folder. But here's the thing they don't know yet. You're not just a benefactor, Olivia. According to the trust documents, you're actually the successor trustee if Mom and Dad are found unfit. Grandma changed it right before she died. She saw something we didn't. I stared at the documents. They don't know. They're about to find out, tomorrow morning when my courier delivers the legal notice. As successor trustee, you have complete discretion over all distributions, David explained, spreading the documents across our coffee table. The house? It's actually owned by the trust, not Mom and Dad directly. Grandma set it up that way for tax purposes. So I could evict them? Technically, yes, but more importantly, you control all the investment accounts, the education funds, even the vacation property in Florida they've been renting out for income. Marcus studied the papers. This is significant power. Power they've been abusing, David said grimly. I've tracked every withdrawal. They've taken $127,000 from Emma and Liam's education funds over 3 years. For family expenses, they claimed. But those expenses included Sarah's kitchen renovation and Tyler's lacrosse equipment. They stole from my babies? My voice was deadly quiet. Legally, it's embezzlement. Morally, it's worse. David pulled out another document. The eviction notice is already prepared, standard 30-day notice. But Olivia, you need to understand, once you do this, there's no going back. They made that choice when they made my children sit in a corner, I said. There's one more thing, David added. The family reunion next month, the one where all the extended family comes, it's at the house. If you evict them, it'll be public, Marcus finished. Very. Aunt Catherine alone will ensure everyone from here to Seattle knows about it. I thought about Emma's face when she said they had to wait their turn, about Liam's empty plate, about 8 years of my money funding their superiority complex while they taught my children they were inferior. File it, I said. File everything. David nodded and pulled out his phone. The courier will deliver it at 9 a.m. sharp. Be prepared for war. They started the war when they went after my children. I'm just finishing it. Marcus and I spent the rest of the evening preparing, not just legally or financially, but emotionally. We sat with Emma and Liam the next morning, explaining in age-appropriate terms that we wouldn't be seeing Grandma and Grandpa for a while. Is it because we're different? Emma asked, her 7-year-old wisdom cutting straight to the heart. No, baby. It's because they forgot that different is beautiful, I told her. And until they remember that, we're going to spend time with people who see how special you are. Like Uncle David? Liam piped up. Exactly like Uncle David. At 9:03 a.m., my phone exploded. The courier had arrived. What is this? My father's voice boomed through the speaker when I finally answered. Eviction? Trustee malfeasance? Have you lost your mind? I've found it, actually. You're evicting your own parents? Over what? A seating arrangement? Over systematic discrimination against my children. Over $127,000 stolen from their education funds. Over 8 years of taking my money while treating my family as second class. We'll fight this. With what lawyer, Dad? David? The one who documented everything and filed the papers himself? Silence. Then, David wouldn't. David did. He chose justice over enabling racism. Racism? We're not racist. We have a black son-in-law. Marcus actually laughed at that one. The classic defense, he muttered. You have a black son-in-law whose money you'll take, but whose children you won't feed, I corrected. That's worse than racism. It's racist exploitation. The family reunion. We'll have to find a new venue. I suggest Sarah's house. Oh, wait, she doesn't have one because she's been living off my support too. The call ended with cursing I won't repeat. But I knew this was just the beginning. The real confrontation would come when they realized the full extent of what they'd lost. 3 days later, they called a family meeting. David warned me they would try this. One last attempt to manipulate the situation with an audience. The location was neutral. Aunt Catherine's house. The audience, every available family member within driving distance. I walked in with David beside me, Marcus choosing to stay home with the kids. The room was packed. My parents sat at the head of the table like wronged monarchs. Sarah had clearly been crying, her mascara smudged despite attempted repairs. Now she shows up, Sarah muttered. Olivia, Aunt Catherine began, clearly appointed as mediator. This has gotten out of hand. Evicting your parents? Over a family squabble? Is that what they told you? A squabble? I remained standing. Did they mention the part where they made my children eat leftovers while Sarah's kids got fresh food? Where they said my mixed-race children need to know their place? Gasps around the room. Apparently that detail had been omitted. That's an exaggeration, my mother said quickly. Is it? David pulled out his phone. Should I play the recording? Recording? Uncle Pete leaned forward. You recorded your own family? I documented discrimination against children, my niece and nephew. David's voice was steel. Would you like to hear it? The room tensed. My parents exchanged panicked looks. Sarah went pale. This is ridiculous, my father blustered. We're family. Family doesn't steal $127,000 from children's education funds, I interrupted. Family doesn't take $672,000 in support while treating the giver's children as inferior. 600. Aunt Catherine's voice trailed off. Shall I itemize it? I pulled out my phone. 8 years of rent, health insurance, loans never repaid, tuition, medical bills. You offered, Sarah shrieked, while you made my babies sit in a corner like dogs waiting for scraps. The room erupted. Everyone calm down, Aunt Catherine commanded, but David was already connecting his phone to her smart TV. No, they need to hear this, he said. The recording began. The room fell silent as Sarah's voice filled the space. Your kids were born to take what's left. Mixed children don't belong at the main table. They never have, and they never will. My mother's voice followed. They need to learn humility. The world won't be kind to them. Then my father. Pure bloodlines matter, Olivia. You chose to dilute ours. The recording continued for 3 excruciating minutes. Every horrible word, every casual cruelty broadcast to the extended family. Aunt Catherine's hand covered her mouth. Uncle Pete stood up and walked out. Cousin Marie started crying. Turn it off, my mother whispered. There's more, David said coldly. 3 months' worth. Would you like to hear the one where you called Emma and Liam unfortunate mistakes? Or when Sarah said they'd never amount to anything because of their tainted genetics. Enough, my father roared. You're right, I said. It is enough. Enough of my money funding your racism. Enough of my children being traumatized by their own grandparents. Enough of pretending this is acceptable because we're family. Linda, Robert, is this true? Aunt Catherine's voice was ice. You said those things about children? It was taken out of context, my mother started. What context makes that acceptable? Cousin Marie demanded. They're babies, 7 and 5 years old. And they're beautiful, brilliant children, I added. Who deserve better than grandparents who see them as inferior because their father is black? Sarah tried one more time. You're destroying this family. No, Aunt Catherine said firmly. You destroyed it when you forgot that family means love, not bloodlines. The room divided visibly, most moving toward David and me, leaving my parents and Sarah increasingly isolated. The reality of their situation hit them all at once, right there in front of everyone. The house payment is due in 2 weeks, my mother said desperately. We'll be homeless. You have equity. Sell it. Downsize, I suggested calmly. Sarah's children will have to leave private school, she continued, looking around the room for sympathy. Public school is fine. Millions of children attend them, David noted. My diabetes medication, Medicare covers most of it. You'll need to budget for the rest. Sarah's phone rang. She answered, her face crumbling as she listened. The school. They say if next semester's tuition isn't paid by Monday, Tyler can't return after Christmas break. That's $18,000, she whispered, looking at me. You paid it last year without blinking. Last year, I didn't know you were teaching my children they were inferior while spending my money. Please, my father tried, his authoritarian mask finally cracking. We're sorry, we didn't mean… You meant every word, I cut him off. You just never expected consequences. Aunt Catherine stood up. I think we've heard enough. Robert, Linda, Sarah, you should be ashamed. Those babies never did anything but love you. And Olivia, Uncle Pete had returned. If you need anything at all for those kids, you call us. Real family supports each other. The exodus began. One by one, family members left, many stopping to squeeze my shoulder or whisper support. Soon, it was just my parents, Sarah, David, and me. You've turned everyone against us, Sarah said bitterly. No, your own words did that, David replied. Olivia just stopped protecting you from the consequences. My mother was crying now, real tears. What are we supposed to do? Figure it out, I said, standing to leave. The same way my children figured out how to sit quietly with empty plates while watching their cousins eat. Except you're adults. It should be easier for you. This story is resonating with so many of you, and I see your comments about similar experiences. If you believe that children should never be discriminated against by their own family, please share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the powerful conclusion. Let's continue with what happened next. Back at Aunt Catherine's house, David laid out the formal documents on the table. The family meeting had reconvened with a smaller, more serious group. Just my parents, Sarah, David, myself, and Aunt Catherine as witness. As successor trustee of the Margaret Smith Family Trust, David read formally, Olivia Smith has full authority over all trust assets and distributions. He slid the papers across the table. My parents' hands shook as they read. The house at 4827 Maple Avenue, currently valued at $750,000, is owned by the trust. You have 30 days to vacate. 30 days? My father's voice cracked. Standard notice, David continued. The trust's investment accounts, totaling $340,000, are now frozen pending investigation of misappropriation. The education funds for Tyler, Madison, and Jacob Miller, previously funded through the trust, are terminated effective immediately. Sarah made a choking sound. That's their future. The future you said my children didn't deserve? I asked quietly. David pulled out another document. This details the $127,000 taken from Emma and Liam's education funds. You can either repay it within 90 days or we proceed with criminal charges for embezzlement. Criminal charges? Against your own parents? My mother gasped. Against people who stole from children, David corrected. The fact that they're our parents makes it worse, not better. As of today, I added, all financial support is terminated. No more rent payments, insurance coverage, credit card backing, or personal loans. You have the same resources available to you as any other retired couple living on Social Security. Aunt Catherine spoke up. And if anyone in this family even thinks about retaliating against Emma and Liam, you'll answer to all of us. The papers sat on the table like a verdict. Everything they'd built on my money, everything they'd taken for granted, gone in black and white legal text. Let me break down exactly what you've cost yourselves, I said, pulling out my laptop. Since everyone seems to think this is about one dinner, the spreadsheet appeared on screen, meticulously detailed. 8 years of rent at $3,500 per month, $336,000. My mother flinched. Health insurance for 5 people, $180,000. Sarah closed her eyes. Personal loans never repaid, $73,000. Sarah's kitchen renovation, Dad's boat, Mom's cruise vacations. Those were gifts, Sarah protested. They were loans. I have the texts where you promised to pay me back. I continued scrolling. Tyler's private school, $72,000. Madison's dance, $15,000. Jacob's hockey, $12,000. Medical expenses not covered by insurance, $34,000. The vacation house maintenance, $28,000. Miscellaneous support, birthday gifts, holiday bonuses, approximately $40,000. Total, $790,000 over 8 years. The number hung in the air like a judgment. That doesn't include the $127,000 stolen from my children's funds, David added. So we're looking at nearly $1 million, I concluded. $1 million I gave to people who made my babies sit in a corner with empty plates because their father is black. When you put it like that, my father started. How else should I put it? I challenged. You took my money for 8 years while psychologically abusing my children. You taught them they were worth less than their cousins because of their race. You literally fed them scraps. All while living in a house I paid for, driving cars I insured, sending your grandchildren to schools I funded. Aunt Catherine whistled low. That's not family support. That's exploitation. I could sue for repayment, I said quietly. David says I have a strong case, but I won't, on one condition. They leaned forward desperately. You never contact my children again unless they choose to reach out as adults. Let's talk about what you really threw away, I said, my voice steady but filled with pain. Marcus is a senior software engineer at Microsoft. He makes $300,000 a year. He graduated summa cum laude from MIT. He volunteers at the Children's Hospital every Saturday. We know, my mother started. Do you? Because you acted like his children were contaminating your bloodline. Emma is in the gifted program. She reads 3 grades above level. Liam is 5 and already doing multiplication. They're brilliant, beautiful children who happen to be biracial. But all you saw was their skin color, their different hair, their unfortunate genetics. Sarah shifted uncomfortably. We never said. I have recordings, David reminded her. You want to know the irony? I continued. Marcus's family welcomed me completely. His Nigerian parents, who immigrated here with nothing, who built successful businesses from scratch, they never once made me feel less than because I'm white. They never made our children choose between cultures. But you, with your pure bloodlines talk, living off the success of your mixed-race son-in-law's wife, you made those babies feel worthless. They'll spend years in therapy undoing what you did to them in 3 months, Marcus had asked me to say this. Years learning that they deserve to eat at anyone's table, that they're not born to take leftovers. Aunt Catherine spoke up. My husband was Korean. Our children are mixed. If anyone had said this about them, she shook her head, I'd have done worse than evict them. The saddest part? I stood up. Emma asked me if Grandma didn't love her because she looks like Daddy. How do I answer that? How do I tell a 7-year-old that her grandmother's love came with racial conditions? The room was silent. There was no defense, no justification that could make this right. I stood at the head of the table, the final documents in my hand. This is the termination of all financial support, effective immediately. My signature went on the paper with deliberate strokes. This isn't about revenge, I said, looking each of them in the eye. It's about protecting my children from people who would damage their sense of self-worth. We can change, my mother pleaded. Give us another chance. You had 8 years of chances. Every month when I sent money, that was a chance. Every family dinner where you could have treated them equally, that was a chance. David notarized the documents. It's done. The trust will be restructured with Olivia as sole trustee. Emma and Liam's education funds will be restored through aggressive investment management. What about us? Sarah asked desperately. Where will we live? That's no longer my concern. You might try getting a job. I hear they're hiring at the Amazon warehouse. No experience necessary. This is cruel, my father said. Cruel. I laughed bitterly. Cruel is making a 5-year-old watch other children eat while his stomach growls. Cruel is telling a 7-year-old she's inferior because of her skin color. What I'm doing is justice. I pulled out one last document. This is a college fund I'm establishing for Emma and Liam. The $1 million I would have spent on you over the next decade will go to their education instead. They'll go to any school they can get into, Harvard, MIT, wherever their brilliance takes them. And they'll know they deserve to be there, not in the corner, not waiting for scraps, but at the head of the table. Aunt Catherine stood and applauded. It's about time someone in this family stood up for those babies. I gathered my papers. My lawyer will handle any further communication. Goodbye. The dominoes fell quickly after that meeting. Within a week, Sarah's husband James called me. I just found out what happened. All of it. Olivia, I'm filing for divorce. I won't have my kids raised by someone who thinks that way about other children. 2 weeks later, my parents received their first eviction notice. They tried to fight it, hired a lawyer with their savings, only to discover David had documented everything perfectly. The trust ownership was ironclad. Sarah had to pull Tyler from private school mid-semester. The humiliation of explaining why to the other parents spread through their social circle like wildfire. Madison's dance academy, where Sarah had bragged about being a patron, suddenly knew exactly why the payments stopped. The whole neighborhood knows, Cousin Marie told me. Someone leaked the recording to the neighborhood Facebook group. Your parents can't even go to the grocery store without people whispering. My father tried to get his old business contacts to help, but word had spread there too. Nobody wants to be associated with racists, one former partner told him bluntly. Especially racists who stole from their own grandchildren. The family reunion was relocated to Uncle Pete's house. My parents and Sarah weren't invited. We don't want that poison near our children, Aunt Catherine explained to anyone who asked. 3 months in, my mother applied for a job at Target. She was 60 years old, hadn't worked in 15 years, and had to list my father as her only reference. She didn't get the job. Sarah did get hired at the Amazon warehouse. She lasted 2 weeks before the physical demands made her quit. I wasn't raised for this kind of work, she complained to anyone who'd listen. But the real consequence was the complete loss of their social standing. They went from being the respected elder statesmen of the family to pariahs, all because they couldn't see past skin color. I established new rules, clear boundaries that would protect my children going forward. No contact for 6 months minimum, I told David, who agreed to serve as intermediary if necessary. After that, only if they complete racial bias counseling and provide proof. They must write individual letters of apology to Emma and Liam, age-appropriate ones that I will review before the children ever see them. Any future contact happens in public spaces only, with Marcus or me present at all times. The moment they say anything that diminishes my children's worth, it's permanent no contact. Marcus and I also made positive changes. We enrolled the kids in a diverse private school where multiculturalism was celebrated. Emma joined a reading club with children from 12 different ethnic backgrounds. Liam started soccer with a coach who made sure every child felt valued. "We're building them a new village," Marcus said one evening as we watched them play with their new friends. "One that sees their full worth." David became an even more present uncle, taking them to museums, teaching them about their legal rights, showing them that family could mean unconditional support. "They need to know that standing up for yourself isn't wrong," he told me, "even when it's against family. Especially then." We also connected more with Marcus's family. His parents flew in from Atlanta, showering the children with the love and acceptance they'd been denied. "In Igbo culture," Marcus's mother told them, "children are treasures. All children. You are our treasures." The contrast was stark. Where my parents had seen contamination, Marcus's family saw blessing. Where Sarah had seen inferior beings, they saw brilliant futures. "Mommy," Emma said one day, "I don't miss Grandma and Grandpa. Is that bad?" "No, sweetheart, you miss the grandparents you deserve to have, not the ones you actually had. That's perfectly okay." 3 months after the confrontation, David brought me an update on their situation. We met at a coffee shop while Marcus took the kids to the park. They didn't need to hear this. "They're living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Renton," he reported. "Dad had to sell his boat and Mom's jewelry to make the deposit." "Sarah?" "Moved in with them. James got the house in the divorce settlement. She's working at a call center now, making $15 an hour." I stirred my coffee, waiting for the satisfaction that didn't come. "Are they managing?" "Barely. Food banks, Medicaid, social services, everything they use to judge other people for needing." The irony isn't lost on me. "There's more," David said carefully. "Mom's been calling extended family, trying to borrow money, telling them you're cruel, that you're keeping their grandchildren from them out of spite." "And?" "Nobody's buying it. Aunt Catherine sent her a link to racial bias training and told her to call back after she completed it." We sat in silence for a moment. "They still don't get it," David continued. "Dad told Uncle Pete that you overreacted to a simple family tradition. Mom insists they were trying to teach the kids patience." "And Sarah?" "Sarah's the worst. She's telling everyone that you destroyed her children's future over a misunderstanding. She claims the recording was edited, taken out of context." "Even though multiple people heard it live?" "Denial is powerful." David pulled out his phone. "But karma isn't done. Tyler wrote a school essay about family. Want to guess what he wrote?" I shook my head. "He wrote about how his mother taught him that some cousins were worth less than others because of their skin. His teacher was so concerned, she called child services for a welfare check. Sometimes the universe delivers justice in unexpected ways." 6 months after that horrible dinner, my children had transformed. Emma stood taller. She raised her hand in class without hesitation. Her teacher pulled me aside at pickup. "Whatever you've done, keep doing it." She's like a different child. Confident, engaged, brilliant. She'd started writing stories about a brave princess with curly hair and brown skin who saved kingdoms with her intelligence. "She looks like me, Mommy," Emma explained. "And she never has to wait for anything. She belongs everywhere she goes." Liam stopped having nightmares about being hungry. He ate without looking over his shoulder, without asking permission for seconds. His appetite returned fully, and with it, his infectious laugh that had been missing for months. "Daddy's mommy says I'm perfect," he told me one day after a video call with Marcus's parents. "Just exactly perfect how I am." Marcus had taken them to his company's family day. They met other mixed-race children, saw successful people who looked like them. "Did you know Daddy's boss is like us?" Emma asked excitedly. "She has a white mom and black dad too." We created new traditions. Sunday dinners where everyone sat at the same table, ate the same food at the same time. No corners, no folding tables, no waiting for turns. Family meeting became our weekly check-in, where both kids could share anything bothering them. They learned their voices mattered, Their feelings were valid, their needs were important. The therapy helped too. Dr. Martinez, herself biracial, helped them process the rejection in age-appropriate ways. They're learning that other people's limitations aren't their burden to carry, she told us. Most importantly, they learned about chosen family. Uncle David, Aunt Catherine, Marcus's family, our friends, all showing them that love doesn't require blood and blood doesn't guarantee love. The story spread beyond our family, becoming something bigger than I'd ever imagined. David started a pro bono practice helping other families dealing with similar discrimination. You'd be shocked how common this is, he told me. Grandparents with preferences, inheritances with racial conditions, family trusts that mysteriously skip certain grandchildren. A local parenting group invited me to speak about setting boundaries with toxic family members. The room was packed. How do you choose your children over your parents? One woman asked, tears streaming down her face. You don't choose, I answered. The moment they hurt your children, they make the choice for you. You just enforce it. The recording David made ended up being used in a law school ethics class about family law and discrimination. Professor Williams contacted me. Your case perfectly illustrates how financial abuse often accompanies racial discrimination within families. Marcus's company started a support group for employees dealing with family racism. He became an unofficial counselor to other mixed-race families navigating similar situations. Even our kids' school implemented new policies about inclusive family events after hearing our story. No child should feel less than anywhere, especially not at family gatherings, the principal said. The ripple effects continued. 3 other families in our extended circle cut off racist relatives after seeing us do it. You showed us it was possible, one cousin told me. That we didn't have to accept it for the sake of family harmony. Aunt Catherine started a college fund for multiracial grandchildren whose families rejected them. If their blood relatives won't support them, their chosen family will, she declared. But perhaps the most powerful impact was the message it sent. That no amount of money, no family connection, no tradition was worth more than a child's dignity and self-worth. That sometimes protecting your children means walking away from those who should love them most. 1 year after the incident, a letter arrived. My mother's handwriting, shaky but familiar, addressed to me alone, not Marcus, not the children. David brought it over, having screened it first as we'd agreed. It's different, he said carefully. The letter was 3 pages of small, cramped writing. She admitted to the discrimination, finally using the word racism instead of dancing around it. She acknowledged the hurt they'd caused, the damage to Emma and Liam's self-worth. I see them everywhere, she wrote. In every mixed-race child at the store, in every biracial family at the park. I see what we threw away for an ugly belief that makes no sense now. She described their current life, the small apartment, the food stamps, the loneliness. But more than that, she described the internal reckoning. Your father still won't admit it, and Sarah remains bitter. But I know. We destroyed our family over hatred we dressed up as tradition. She'd enrolled in an online racial bias course, attached the certificate. She'd been volunteering at a community center that served primarily immigrant families. I'm learning, she wrote. Too late, but I'm learning. The final paragraph was the most honest. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve to see them. But please tell Emma and Liam that Grandma was wrong. They were never less than. They were always more than we deserved. What do you want to do? David asked. I sat with the letter for days. Marcus read it, said nothing, left the decision to me. The children didn't know it existed. Finally, I wrote back. 1 line. I'll tell them when they're older. If you've truly changed, you'll understand why not now. She never wrote again, but David confirmed she continued the volunteer work. Sometimes that's what accountability looks like, doing the work without the reward. 2 years passed before the next contact. This time it came through David with a different request. Mom's sick, he said simply. Cancer, stage 3. I felt nothing at first, then a complicated mix of emotions I couldn't name. She's not asking to see you or the kids, he continued, but she wanted you to know. And she has something for Emma and Liam. We met at David's office. My mother had aged a decade in 2 years. The chemotherapy had taken her hair, the poverty had taken her pride, but something in her eyes had changed. The hardness was gone. She pushed an envelope across the table. "It's not money," she said quickly. "I know that would be insulting." Inside were 2 letters, one addressed to each child, and a flash drive. "The letters are for when they're 18, she explained. "The drive has videos, me reading every book I used to read to them when they were babies before I lost my mind to hate." Her voice broke. "I wanted them to have something good to remember, if they choose to remember at all." "Why?" I asked. "Because I'm dying with the weight of what I did, and they shouldn't carry any of it, not 1 ounce." She stood to leave, then turned back. "Tell them their grandmother loved them. She just forgot how to do it right." Marcus and I discussed it extensively with Dr. Martinez. We decided to keep the materials for when the children were older, able to process complex emotions about flawed people who cause harm despite love. "Mom," Emma asked one day, completely unprompted, "do you think people can become good after being bad?" "I think people can learn and change," I answered carefully. "But the people they hurt don't owe them forgiveness." "That makes sense," she said, returning to her book. 5 years have passed since that horrible dinner. Emma is 12 now, confident and brilliant, accepted into every advanced program she applies for. Liam is 10, funny and kind, the child who makes sure no one sits alone at lunch. They know the story now, in age-appropriate pieces. They know why we don't see those grandparents, why Uncle David is so protective, why Daddy's parents are our only regular grandparent presence. "I'm glad you protected us," Emma told me recently. "Some kids at school have to pretend they're okay with racist jokes from family. I'm glad we don't." The $1 million I would have spent enabling my family's racism has grown in investment accounts for my children. They'll graduate debt-free, pursue any dream they choose, never wondering if they deserve their place at any table. My mother died last year. David handled the funeral arrangements. I didn't attend, but I sent flowers with a simple card. "May you find the peace you couldn't give." Sarah still sends angry messages through various platforms, still blaming me for her circumstances. I don't read them anymore. My father lives in a nursing home now, his pension barely covering the costs. He never acknowledged what they did. But here's what matters. My children know their worth. They understand that love doesn't require accepting discrimination, that family isn't permission for abuse, that their beautiful mixed heritage is a gift, not a burden. They eat at the main table everywhere they go, literally and metaphorically. They take up space. They use their voices. They expect respect and give it in return. "Mommy," Liam asked recently, "why did they think we were less special because of how we look?" "Because, baby, some people are so afraid of difference that they can't see beauty, but that's their loss, not our burden." And that's the truth we live by now. Thank you for staying with Olivia's story until the end. If this resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to protect your children from toxic family dynamics. What would you have done in Olivia's situation? Would you have walked away sooner or tried to work it out? I read every comment and would love to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so now and hit the bell icon. Your support helps these important stories reach those who need them most. Until next time, remember, you deserve a seat at the table, not the leftovers.